We're about to start the next Pykonik Tech Talks. It's Pykonik Tech Talks 65. And we have a very special edition today because we have a joint meetup with PyData. We're doing different format today. We're doing shorter talks for the season finale of the spring 2023. We won't have meetups for the next 2 months as we always take a summer break. So the meetups will be back in September, but for the season finale, we'll have a different format today. Okay, so we are meeting at a different time than usual. It's Wednesday instead of Thursday. That's because the next, tomorrow starts Polish PyCon in Gliwice, and so to not overlap with PyCon, we moved a day earlier. Who's going to PyCon? I see a few people. So yeah, if you wanted to grab tickets, they're still there. Okay, so who's first time on Pykonik? You can see a lot of new faces. Good. Who's for the first time on PyData? Okay, lots more people. Yeah, so we meet every month on Pykonik. We meet every last Thursday of the month for usually a Tech Talks format, and you can follow us on meetup.com and or other socials. And we do have a Discord server that's here. And if you want to join that Discord server, you can go to the meetup page and go to discord.pykonik.org. And this is relevant information because we will be running a competition today on that Discord server on the Pykonik 65 channel. And the rules will be posted there after I finish the introduction. And the prizes are 2 JetBrains licenses. So you can win a yearly PyCharm license from JetBrains. And yeah, go to Discord. If you're not there already, join the server and we'll explain the rules over there. What else? We have a different format today, as I mentioned. So we have shorter 10-minute talks. We have a lot of topics to cover. We have 8 items on the agenda. And we will have some time left after all those talks. So if you get inspired by one of those talks and want to do another lightning talk, about 5 minutes or so after those talks, we're welcome. We'll have an open mic after the talks. We will have a break at about 7:10, something like that, after first 3 talks, maybe, when the pizza will arrive. And yeah. Oh, one more thing. Big thanks to the Cosmo. What's the correct word I'm looking for? Science Club, yes, Cosmo Science Club from Polytechnica for helping us with organizing the event and making sure that the space is available, and big round of applause for them. And yeah, I think without further ado, we're just gonna switch into the topics of the discussion. So first talk of the day, we have Linux on personal devices, and where are we now? Nico, would you like to start?
Hello. So my name is Nika. I'm quite interested in different Linux devices because I don't like sharing my information with corporations and everything else. So I was thinking about some research about this. So you all remember these phones. So I will start with phones where we have Linux or where we can install Linux. So it's all started from these 2 phones. And when they appeared, I was hoping that they will be developed and we'll see it. But unfortunately, it's just history. So where we are now with Linux on mobile phones. Two most important companies now, most popular, I think. It's Librem 5. I think they were first who started to make this phone. It has Pop! OS operating system on it. It's based on Linux. It was delayed for some times, but now it's possible to buy it. But you see, price it's high. And PinePhone, it doesn't have so good hardware, but price is quite good. If somebody is interested, I have PinePhone with me, so if somebody will be interested, I can show it. It's a little bit outdated because I didn't update system on it, but it's working. These two phones, I didn't use Librem 5. I've seen it on some conferences. But PinePhone, unfortunately, it's still on beta version. They have pro version, but as I heard, it doesn't work as good as we all want. So I wanted to have it like my main phone, but it doesn't work as I want. We have more options. Phones which are going with Android, but you can install Linux on them. Most of them support Ubuntu Touch and Sailfish. So I was thinking about this FX Tech Pro because of QWERTY keyboard, but it's, I think, the most expensive from all the phones. As I know, they are working better than PinePhone, for example, but they have better hardware, as you see. And we have some Android phones, quite old phones, where you can install Ubuntu Touch. I know people who are using Ubuntu Touch on every day on Android or on OnePlus 6, and it's working. And about applications on Linux systems. Okay, this is distributions which we have at this time. It's not all distributions, we have much more, but these ones are the most popular. And on some distributions, for example, on Postmarket or somewhere else, there is possible to run Android applications too, but I don't know if it's working good. Didn't test it. So I know that there is a possibility. If somebody is interested, you can try. So it's all I wanted to say about mobile phones. It's possible to use Linux, but still most of people who are interested in it are using Android or something else. And the next step is laptops. First is the most popular company is System76. I heard quite good opinions about it, and they have really good hardware. And this hardware is developed to run Linux, and Linux is going good. I don't know what to say more about this. So System76 is the most popular one. The next one is Starlabs. It's a laptop which I own. It's this one. I like it. I have it more than 1 year. They have more laptops, small, big, so about 11 and 16, I think, and this one 14. The next company is Framework. It's quite popular too. I know people who have frameworks too. I heard good opinions. Didn't try, didn't work on it. And I think the last one, it's other companies which create laptops for where you can run Linux. Quite popular one, it's Tuxedo Computers. And Purism Librem 14, it's the company which created Librem 5 phone. Today I found a company Laptop with Linux. They just create laptops on Clever platform. I don't know any opinions about it, but just found it. And quite good thing, it's Penbook Pro. They run Linux on ARM, so it's ARM laptops, very cheap laptops, and with very big configuration. But like alternative, it can be. And for me, it's quite interesting project. So I'm finishing with laptops, but Pan64 they have quite wide range of products. They have headphones, they have, or at least I've seen advertising about headphones. They have Pine Time, like smartwatch. They have, what they have? So they have quite wide range of products. I'm not sure if there are, they have tablet, Pine Tab. Let's hope that it will be developing, and at least my hope is still alive. And that's all. Thanks.
Okay, I think we have time for one question while Dominic is setting up for his talk, because we are only like 7.5 minutes into the first one. So do we have anyone who has a question about the presentation? Okay, just get there with the mic first.
There's quite an extensive matrix of alternative OSs, let's say, for phones, for example. And the thing I found hard is, okay, I got some hardware in my desk drawer. How to find if it's supported by any of those distributions in an easy way without browsing 20 projects pages?
Sorry. So this operating systems, the distributions, they're run by amateurs, and at least those phones which I show, they're supported because they were testing.
There's existing devices in our drawers which would benefit strongly from many of those, and the problematic part is, at least I was unable to find a good resource on what supports what in terms of alternative distributions of, let's say, phone OS.
I think it's better to search information on operating system pages. For example, Postmarket OS page, they have a list of devices which they support, or Ubuntu Touch.
Thanks.
May I answer to a question also? There are some substitutions, like for example, for Pixel, there's Graphen OS. They try to, play with Google API to work with wallet and something like that. But
Dominic, are you already set up?
Okay. Any questions? Can I stop?
Once the stopwatch goes off at 10 minutes, we'll start clapping. I'll start clapping first, and you will have the signal to keep clapping. So then Dominic has the motivation to finish on time. Dominic, what are we going to talk about today?
I'm going to talk about a case, like kind of a curious case of like not having disk space on your system. and some things around it. Yeah.
Okay. So let's give a round of applause to Dominic and
Ej, a wyświetlisz mi jakiś timer? Okay, can you see my screen? Okay, cool. So I'm in this files play directory, as you can see, and the thing is that I run out of disk space. If I try to, create a file, I can't because there's no space left on device. So if we actually look how much disk space is there on this drive where this directory is located in, we can see that there's dev SDA drive, and like 152 gigabytes are used, 158 gigabytes is the size. So, first of all, there is still like 6 gigabytes left that should be usable, but are not, because, well, Linux system does this thing that they like allocate some memory some disk space just for the root user. So if I would, do sudo su, then I would be able to actually create a file because I am root and I can exceed this limit. Okay, but let's go back, and I shouldn't, okay, I can do that still because I am still logged in as a root probably or something like that, but whatever. I shouldn't be able to do that. But as you can see, I have only like 6 gigabytes left, right? And I have this program here called a.out, which allows me to create new files. So let's create a new file called big file. And when I created this file, let me display it this way. This file has 50 gigabytes of disk. It takes 50 gigabytes of disk space, or should take 50 gigabytes. The thing is that, this file still doesn't account for this limit. It wouldn't fit there, right? But I created it. The reason for this is that this disk is mounted as a ext4 file system, and you can see this with the mount command. You have this ext4 here, and this file system supports sparse files, which are files that can, take less disk space than the size of the file itself. So it's kind of like a compressed file, I would say. This file has, what was the name of it? It was a big file. This file has, I can't even press tab to fill in, but the thing is that this file has all zeros in it, like 50 gigabytes of zeros, right? But on the disk, it just takes like zero space. And I have a command here that I can use to show you that this command can actually tell you how much disk space or like block sizes would a file take, and this big file takes exactly 0. And obviously I could create many more of them, I could create A, B, C, and so on, and I have many of those 50 gigabytes files which take no space because there are sparse files. Okay, but why did I get here in the first place? Oh, and by the way, this A.out is just a C code that creates a file, resizes it to 50 gigabytes, and just closes it. So that's how I created those sparse files. But how did I get here? So first of all, I have this exact system where I couldn't really, create anything, or because I didn't have any space left. So I immediately called this command ncdu on / from the sudo user, just to, find out what takes up the space. And I will just abort it and show you this in another console where I have this finished. This is an interactive tool where you can go to directories and see that, for example, in /date I have 80 gigabytes, in /var I have 70, and so on. By the way, total disk usage 240. This is because actually the /data is another disk, so we shouldn't really count it here because it's SDB1, not SDA1. But I had this /var /log /syslog file, which takes 50 gigabytes of disk space. And syslog is something where some kind of system logs goes into. So if I do this, var log syslog, I should be able to see some logs that are appearing here, some permission denied logs or some other logs that I apparently sent here just to spam this. I'm not sure why no more appears, maybe because of the exceeded disk. But what I did is I just removed this file, and I can do it with by pressing D here And are you sure you want to delete syslog? Yes, I want. So I deleted this file, right? Now I should have 50 gigabytes disk space more, right? But if I do this, apparently there is still no more disk space. The thing is that, I removed this file, but this file was actually opened by some process. And now if I would redo this ncdu command, I cannot see what takes up this disk space, because this ncdu just traverses through the file system, looks over the sizes of the files, and it doesn't really see this file because it was deleted. But it still occupies disk space because this file is still opened by the syslog process. What can we do here? First of all, there's this lsoff command, which you can use in order, permission denied because I probably need to be root. So maybe I will just do it here. So this command will go through the proc file system, and proc file system gives you information about like processes that you have in your system, and you can also spot up information there about the files they have opened. And this command actually allows you to see that, for example, the systemd command has the / directory opened, or for example, the systemd process has the libmso file opened, and the size of this file is this one. And if we go further, we can probably grep for deleted, and there will be like so many of files that are deleted, like some tmp file deleted by cron. But maybe if we grab it further by syslog, I hope that this file will be there. Yep, and we can see that here is the file that we deleted, and it took like 58 maybe gigabytes of space. This is like this many of bytes, and we can see it here. So what can I do now? Well, I can kill the syslog process so that it would restart itself because there's a systemd service for it, and it will recreate this file, and it will, since I would kill this process, this file will be finally closed, and it will take no more disk space. Alternatively, I can do it in a better way, like do something like service rsyslog_d or like this, and this should probably work. Now if I will do this grep, now I have the disk space. So this is how I kind of recovered from this situation of removing the var log syslog file, which is not something I recommend. You definitely shouldn't remove your logs. But this is a server I don't care about much, so that's how I did it. One more thing I wanted to show you here is that, interestingly, someone even thought about removing out, disabling sparse file support on ext4. I mean, not that someone implemented it, but someone asks about it. But apparently, at least as someone says here, there is no option to disable those sparse files. I mean, why would you implement such an option in the first place? That's probably a good question. Yeah, and that's probably it from me, unless... Oh, I think I didn't really forget about anything. So if we have any time for questions, you can, I guess, go ahead.
I have one suggestion, maybe not a question, that you don't need to kill the process of the syslog, because syslog itself,
yes, okay,
to release the file, syslog itself support some signals that
yes, you can do this as well. You can find the process of the syslog, and you can do kill minus, I believe, minus s seek_hub and the pid of the rsyslog_d. And then the process will take the signal and will act on that to rotate the log file or recreate it if this doesn't exist. And it's documented in the syslog process, by the way.
Any other questions?
We have.
Okay.
What's the connection between sparse files and the thing that you just shown?
The connection is that I wanted to recreate the example where I take the disk space, and when I created a C code that basically does this, where I open a new file, creating it, I truncate it to a given size, 50 gigabytes, and then I close it. It apparently didn't take up disk space, so I was wondering why, and that's the reason. Yep. Okay. If we don't have any more questions, then I guess that's it. Thank you.
Okay, who is the next speaker? Okay.
So we will have a quick pizza break and we'll be back in like half an hour for people watching on the stream. Thank you.
because, well, you can cache things between jobs. Things like Docker images, pip packages, and other files, so they don't have to be recreated in each of your jobs. But you can also use different caching policies. By default, each job that uses cache will pull the cache at the beginning, run whatever you define in the steps, and then push things back to the cache. But maybe for some reason you don't want to do that because let's say you have a job that does something destructive to the cache. So you can use the policy keyword to disable either pulling of the cache at the beginning of the job or pushing the cache at the end of the job. There are more cool things that you can do with caching. For example, you can select the fast zip compression method, and this will allow you to specify different compression level for your artifacts and for your cache. So here you can select, for example, the fastest method that will run fast, but it will also create a slightly larger zip package in your cache. This works nicely with the previous tip about different caching policies, because let's say you have a pipeline defined in a way that you have one job that is creating cache and then a bunch of other jobs that are pulling this cache. So in this case, it makes sense to use the slowest compression level, because it will take longer to create the cache, but you only create this cache once, and the resulting zip package with the cache files will be smaller, and you will actually be downloading those cache files multiple times. So in the long run, it will probably pay off to wait a bit longer with the cache creation, but download things faster. Another idea to improve the runtime of your pipelines is not very specific to GitLab CI, but it's a general idea. If you have tests that are slow, consider splitting them into different jobs. No one wants to wait for half an hour only to see that the whole pipeline failed because of some silly small unit test failing. When it takes too long to run all the tests in a reasonable amount of time, I try to split them in such a way that my merge request pipelines stay fast and all the slowest tests run on the main branches. For example, in my current project, we have some integration tests that take quite a bit of time, but they are testing that all our applications are working fine together. But because of that, the whole test suite takes around 45 minutes. So we marked all of those integration tests with a slow marker, and we moved them to a separate pipeline that runs only on the staging and on the master branches. And with that, we get a quick feedback on the merge requests, and we eventually get the feedback from the whole test run. If you can't do this because you really need to run all your tests in each merge request, consider at least moving the slow test to the end of the test run. And here is the link explaining how you can do this. Another cool thing that you can start using when your GitLab configuration starts growing bigger is to use hidden jobs and anchors. That way you can reuse part of your config without repeating the same code over and over again. So here is an example I took from the We Make Django template repository. So that's not gonna work if I stand here. So at the top we have this .docker job. Because it's prefixed with dot, it's a hidden job. So GitLab won't run it, but we can use it to define a base for other jobs. And then in the test job, we say that this job extends the .docker job. So by default, it will use the same base image, it will be interruptible, it will use the same services, same variables, and the same before script as .docker. But of course, you can override any of those properties. So in the test job, we are actually overriding the before script. So extending jobs is a great way to avoid writing the same basic configuration over and over in different jobs. But there is one limitation. We can't partially override some setting. So if we define a before script in our test job, it will completely replace whatever we defined in the before script of the .docker job. And in my case, I actually want to keep what I had there in this .docker because I want to still log into Docker Hub and I still want to print all those useful debug information. So we can solve this problem by using anchors. Anchor is a YAML feature that lets you take properties defined in one place and make them available in another place. So in this case, I will take the commands that I defined in the before script in my hidden .docker job, and I will just copy all those steps inside the before script of my test job. And that's how we can combine hidden jobs and anchors to avoid repeating code in the configuration files. One last cool thing I discovered was to use the GitLab runners. What are GitLab runners? Well, GitLab runner is the application that runs your jobs. So instead of relying on GitLab running your jobs, you can install a runner on your computer or on your server and tell GitLab that from now on you want to actually run your jobs on your server, but GitLab will still display you the results, the logs, and everything else. I knew that runner existed before, but they always seem very complex, especially when I looked and tried to understand their config files. But it turns out that they're actually quite easy to set up and use. Runner is basically a binary file. You download this file, you run a command, it will ask you a couple of questions, and based on your answers, it will generate you the config file. And most of the time, if you don't need anything specific, this config file that you get is all you need to use the runner. One of the main reasons to use runners is to save money. If you're running multiple jobs, then you quickly need to start paying for the computing credits. I think it costs around $10 for 1,000 minutes, so it's not really that much of a cost, but if you already have a server running somewhere and you can run the runner in the background, you can still save a bit of money. But another reason to use GitLab runners is for the flexibility that it offers. In my current project, we have some proprietary code that we cannot push to GitLab. So we can't run tests on GitLab because GitLab doesn't have all the code that we are using. But we can run GitLab runner on our server where all the code is available, and we just push the results to GitLab, and then GitLab displays everything nicely for us. And another nice thing about runners is that you can mix and match which jobs are running on GitLab and which are running on your runner. So, for example, we are running tests on our custom runners on our servers, but we are running Black, Flake 8, and all the static analysis still on Gitlab CI. And that's all I have. If you find the CI topic interesting and you want to learn more, as I said, come to PyCon Poland this weekend or EuroPython in 2 weeks. And thank you for listening. I don't think we have time for questions, but if you have any, you can find me online. Also, the slides are on my speaker deck. Thank you.
A great thing about having many short talks is that we need to switch between one speaker and another. And now Maciej will set up, but while Maciej is setting up, you can take one question. And another nice thing about having many frequent changes of the speakers is that I can add more stuff that I forgot at the beginning. For example, we have a microphone over here, and because we have not that much of time for every question, we can make a rule that the first person at that microphone at the end of the talk gets to ask a question. So if you want to ask a question, you can go stand at the microphone, and then you will be able to ask a question after the presentation. Now, while Maciej is setting up, do we have any questions for Sebastian?
When you are creating your own GitLab runner, do you have to install everything on the runner by yourself, or can you reuse the image, the original image, and then add something on top?
That's a good question. From my limited experience with GitLab runners, you can run it in different modes. So you can run it in a shell mode that will use the current shell that you are in, so there you have to install everything yourself, but you can also run it in like a Docker mode, where I think you can specify what image you want to use. And there are even more different modes. Like the documentation for runners is quite extensible, so I think both ways are supported. Any other question, or do I have to finish? Okay, I'm done.
Another round of applause for Sebastian. And now we will clap again because Maciej is already set up and he will talk how he stopped worrying.
Yes, I will.
Okay, Maciej, you have 10 minutes.
Okay, thanks. Hi, everyone. This talk will be about few-shot learning. About this talk, the speaker is a scientist and is enthusiastic about this topic, so please forgive his rambling. The speaker assumes some knowledge of AI/ML. Don't try to understand everything, just try to feel it. But also take your time to understand next 5 slides. And at the end, clap as loudly as you can. Okay, well, first of all, how to turn image into vector? Well, if you have a machine learning model, a neural network, and it is trained for categorization, for example, to tell a cat from a dog, what you can do, you can cut this model in half and then say that, okay, the output of the last layer that is now, last layer, is my vector. And that way you are turning image into vector or array and one-dimensional thing. And this is essentially how few-shot learning works. So we have images. In this case, we have images, and we have model here that is not trained on the examples that we are trying to categorize or classify or do whatever with them. We have 2 sets of images, support set and query set. And what we do is we take each image from each set and we pass it through a model and we get a vector for each of the images. And then we can compare those images. We compare the query set images, or rather vectors, with vectors from support set. And by that way, if we compare 2 vectors and we see that they are similar, then it means that this object from query set is actually the one of the same class or is very similar to the one from the support set. And there are many different ways to calculate similarities. One way about thinking of similarities in vectors is if we have a string like this, 8 letters, and there is only one difference in the string, then we can say that the similarity score is 0.125 because 1 out of 8 elements doesn't match. But there are other similarity metrics. Why this is useful? Again, we can take an image and we can check similarity of that image to another image. And this is called metric space because we can calculate those distances between things. So this is very important to remember this. I will give you 5 seconds to let that sink in. Okay. One other thing important when discussing few-shot learning, and this is for Łukasz. When we are talking about few-shot learning, we can talk about, for example, 5-way one-shot or 5-way 5-shot. And what that means is way means how many classes are we trying to recognize, and shot means how many examples of given classes do we have in support set. Okay, why few-shot learning? The biggest lie of data science /ML/AI industry is, yeah, we have plenty of data and it's of good quality. It's the #1 lie. Everyone lies. So we are using few-shot learning only because we don't have the data, right? No, we can use it pretty much everywhere, I would say, because it's becoming so much robust right now. When we are talking about few-shot learning, I mean, we in theory should be talking, in my opinion, should be talking more about vectorization and rename it. Because this is what we are doing in essence. We are creating vectors out of objects. And we can create vectors out of everything. We can create vectors out of images, sound, video, or text, right? And this is, the text part is actually what's happening with NLP right now. Side note, what if I told you that there is a world where you don't need vectorization with neural networks? You don't do 5 shots, you don't do 3 shots, or even 1 shot. Actually, you don't need to learn model at all. that would be a topic for a different talk, and I also find this quite fascinating. Okay, so getting to the point, why I'm talking about this. Well, my hypothesis is that all state-of-the-art models will converge to few-shot learning soon. And to support this idea, this is the actual front page of the paper that was introducing GPT-3, and they titled it "Language Models Are Few-Shot Learners." And I think it's slowly happening, the same thing is slowly happening in image recognition. But in order to do that, we need very, 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 very big data set of images that we can use. And also we need good method of training stuff without labels, so unsupervised training can happen. To further support this thesis, this is one of the benchmark for few-shot image classification. And you can see that in 2016, we have been starting around 60–50%. And now, at the end, we are getting closer to 90% of accuracy in this particular task. This is a huge leap forward. Actually, this state-of-the-art paper is the one pushing the limits of simple pipelines for few-shot learning. And what it uses is visual transformers, so kind of the same stuff as GPT-3. Dino, which is kind of unsupervised learning, but not entirely. And prototypical networks, which is sort of a gimmick that you can do in metric spaces. What do? They take external data, a huge data set of images, and train a sort of backbone model on it. Then they take more domain-specific data and train it again, and then they use it to solve the exact problem from few-shot learning. So how does it work? Again, take a popular pre-trained network, something like so-called foundation models, so big models, language models, cut it in half to get vectorization. Take your own tiny, pathetic, obscure data set that no one loves, and try fine-tuning with it with metric spaces. And then your problem should be solved entirely. Or even if part of the problem that you are trying to solve is in that foundation model, you don't necessarily even need to retrain it. You just may need only use metric spaces. And this is essentially what happened in NLP, right? In NLP right now, every problem is solved with a huge foundations model like OpenAI GPT that do vectorization of documents, and then you do some kind of math, for example, similarity search, and then you actually get the answer that you are looking for. And this is why there is so many vector databases coming up to store those vectors and do operations on them efficiently. So in summary, the classical approach of getting huge data set and training model from scratch is pretty much dead. The classification game is slowly, I would say, being conquered by few-shot learning. And well, if you are doing anything in this kind of space, you should learn it and adapt. And that's it. Thank you.
We actually still have plenty of time, so if anybody has any questions, you can.
Yeah, I would like to ask how this few-shot learning squares with novelty detection problems.
With detection problems?
Novelty detection problems. Like you have not a classical classification problem, but you have like a data set where you have just 1% or even a fraction of 1% of instances that are true. Like, do we have any like measurement, how this method deals with that? What is the standard score?
It's all based upon metric spaces, and it depends how you will formulate it. But I would expect that since you can teach it with you don't have to do a lot of pre-training. I would expect it also performs well from my experience. I know that when the dataset is not balanced where there is very little information about one class, but more about other, it works well. I mean, it works. It's like one of the solutions.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, while Hubert is setting up, do we have any more questions to Maciej? Long pause, silence. Almost.
Real-time monitoring.
So one more thing that I forgot to mention during the opening is that after all the talks and the lightning talks at the end are done, we will go to the after party. I think we have a location. I think Łukasz, raise your hands. Łukasz will lead you to some location for the after party. It's only known to him, and he has all the details. But I was just wanting to mention that when we finish here, it's not the end of the evening. We will still go to another place and continue the discussion. Okay, Hubert, are you ready?
Yep.
Okay, so Hubert is going to talk about real-time monitoring, and let's give a round of applause to Hubert.
Okay, so hello everyone. My name is Hubert, and every day I work as a machine learning engineer at Brainy in ML Infra team. So our job is to basically make life easier for all of the teams that are doing ML and are developing models and etc. So one of our projects was to build the monitoring system for the ML models for our clients to use. And how the story started. Okay, so there was a team or maybe one of you that deployed a model in production, and yeah, that's great. But this is not end of the journey. It's, well, not the beginning, but I would say quite in the middle. Why? Because unfortunately, models tend to, well, get worse over time. And initially, they may work perfect. Then probably they will stop generating any new business value. But unfortunately, it's possible that after some time, they will even bring negative value. Like it would be better to even not have them that and, well, create wrong predictions. Well, imagine a chatbot that is giving you the wrong answers. Okay, so first things first, I wanted to talk why even it's worth doing it. Because like I said, and we'll show in a second, it's crucial for maintaining the performance because, well, if we don't know how we are performing, we can't say that it's going well. Secondly, with this kind of monitoring, we are unable to pretty quickly find that something may be wrong, identify it, and then address it. Okay, but what even is data drift? It happens when our data changes over time. It's, I would say, as simple as that. Over there, we can also distinguish some, like 3 general types, but I won't get into the probability right now, but I can send great article from Chip Huyen, and I think like everything she writes is great. So just recommend Googling articles from her. Data drift will happen, and I can't imagine a scenario where it wouldn't. It can and unfortunately will impact the performance and reliability of the models. And it's possible to detect it with labeled data. Like we are running our model for 24 hours, we are collecting the predictions, we are sending it to labeling and then measuring accuracy on that data set. But it has a delay, it's very costly because we have to pay for labeling. And if you ever dealt with labeling, you know that defining tasks, etc. is, well, hard. And it's also possible that we don't need to retrain the model immediately. It's just possible that we need to readjust reference data set. And what is the reference data set? It's the part of the data that we know our model is working well on. Like usually, like a general rule of thumb, we might treat the train or test validation data sets as reference data sets. Best if it has the identical distribution to production data. Why? Because we are comparing distributions. So if we, for example, oversample some sparse classes, it will show us a difference in distribution. How to deal with sparse classes? Well, I think it's possible, but I will skip over that because I have 10 minutes. And current data set are recent production data, like where we want to check if the model is still relevant. So example, imagine that you are owning a shop like in Zootopia and you are selling ice cream. And you have 3 different flavors: peanut butter, carrot, and banana. And you have like your shop is open for over a year, so you have 1,000 samples from last year's sales, like what consumers were buying. So you want to create a model that will predict what flavors they will buy next. Awesome. Yeah, for a second the image disappeared and now my presentation is gone. Let me fix it. Okay, great. To predict what to stock up with, what to promotions make, etc. Current data set would be 1,000 last sales. With my, I would say, brief experience, it's much easier to look when those two values, current and reference data set, have similar size. And yeah, based on the history, we will be predicting what next flavor customer will buy. And the question is, what might go wrong? First, for example, because the rabbits are multiplying faster, there will be more rabbits than there were initially. So more carrot ice cream will be gone. Second, peanut supplier changes and they will taste worse. So we will be selling less peanut butter ice cream. And maybe there are holidays and most squirrels left town. So again, we might be selling less peanut butter ice cream than we initially anticipated. And all of that I just mentioned is distribution shift that we should catch with our automatic methods. And now implementation, because that's the engineering part. So over time, we are getting these predictions. And to catch, to get our current data set, we can either like gather data for like last 1,000 examples, then the next 1,000, and then from 2,000 data points, we will have 2 drift calculations. But I would say that's pretty bad because we only have 2 data points. So the next possible approach is that, well, first we wait for the 1,000 examples because we need to have that. But then we create a sliding window or a buffer and just wait for a few new samples, and then we reduce the calculation, etc., etc. And then we will have much more points and they will be kind of smoothed out. The next thing is, like, if our application restarts, we want to still have access to the sliding window. So unfortunately, well, we cannot have and store only this sliding window in memory because it will get messy quickly. Okay, but imagine it's going great and we in the future might have 2 models, like one for pastries, like croissants, and one for ice cream that we already had. And we want both models to be monitored for data drift. So one possible approach is to put both of the results in the same queue. And that's fairly easy, as we will only have like one node that is, the brain represents like the node that is doing the data drift calculations, because they need to be calculated every 1,000 examples. And that's great. But if there's too much work for that one node and we want to scale up, how to split traffic? Ideally, it would be in a way that one node will be getting only data from the ice cream model and the second one from the pastry model. So to sum up, from our system, we need great routing. We need to have ability to create this sliding window and, well, basically persistence. So, and also we would probably want our consumers to decide how fast they want to ingest new data, because the data-driven calculation takes a few seconds. So for that time, they want to pass the consumption. So the system we come up with is utilizing Kafka for the, as I spoiled a little with the presentation topic, is utilizing Kafka because we can start the consumers and bring the offset, for example, 200 examples in the back, and then start consuming from there. And that was the initial idea. And every other systems we considered, like RabbitMQ, SNS, SQS, we would need to maintain two things. One just for the newest messages, and the second one for the sliding window. So we decided to go with Kafka because, well, one system to maintain is simpler than having two. Reference data set, assumption is that for now it's static, so we're just downloading it from S3. And for the external clients, we are exposing it through HTTP API because, well, everyone knows HTTP and it's easy to use and it's great. And the metrics calculated are exposed through Prometheus endpoint because that was already provided in the stack and is available in Grafana. So our clients, which are internal teams, only need to send through HTTP inference data, like input and output, and they will get very nice charts. And the Faust library, I would say, abstracts in a very nice way the handling with Kafka. They have their own sliding window, but unfortunately only over time implementation. And we are utilizing Evidently for data-driven detection. And this is, if you ever use it, the Evidently report. And it's two-dimensional because it's on single point in time. So we are calculating every few minutes and pushing that to Grafana. So we have a heat map there, and here is the input column detection, and here are the score column and binarized score detection. And if it's in red, then it should be addressed because it's different data than the model was verified on. And that's all. Well, that was a sprint. Thank you.
Okay, the next talk will be by Marcelo, but in the meantime, we have time for questions. Does anybody have a question for Hubert?
Usually it means it was either that good or that bad.
I think it was that good. Okay, so while Marcelo is setting up, I will talk about the next 3 talks because we have sort of a web-based 3 talks coming up. The first one is going to be about Starlette and FastAPI. Then the next one is going to be about validation in Django, and that's actually going to be in Polish. And then afterward, we have another sort of web-related talk by Piotrek about a mysterious 404. So we will find more details when you listen to his talk later, but it's also going to be somehow web-related. And more Python and URL lib related, I guess. Oh, and Dominic raised a valid point because he also wanted to do a lightning talk at the end. Do we have more people who want to do a lightning talk today? Not yet, I guess. But hopefully, by the time we get through the talks, we'll have more ideas. But Dominic definitely has one more to finish up. I guess to finish up his previous talk. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Anyway. Łukasz told me about the place where we're going afterwards. It's called Infusia. It's about 100 meters from Politechnica. Łukasz will still lead you there after the talks, but if you want to go on your own, you can also just go there. It's nearby. And is it working? Do you want to move around a lot? Do you want to move around a lot? Does it work?
What? Oh, nice.
Okay, cool. So the next talk is by Marcelo. Marcelo is one of our special guests today. He's not normally based in Krakow. He is going for Polish PyCon, and he's going to be keynoting there next weekend or this weekend. And he stopped by in Krakow to visit the meetup as well. And thanks for that. And he is a maintainer of Starlette and FastAPI, and he will talk about FastAPI.
Oh,
And he will talk about what Starlette is doing for FastAPI.
yeah.
Take it over.
Thank you. What is it? Oh yeah. Hold on. Do I need to do this? Is it working? Ah, yeah, great. Uh-huh. So nice to meet you. My name is Marcelo. I'm actually not the maintainer of FastAPI. I'm the maintainer of Starlette, Unicorn, and now I guess I'm a maintainer of Pydantic as well. Before I start, I cannot see the screen here. Okay. Before I start, who has ever used FastAPI before? Okay, and only Pydantic? Okay. You didn't use FastAPI, right? Or did you? No, the one at the end, after. Yeah. Okay, nice. I think it was the only one who raised only on the second time. So yeah, anyway, so this talk is going to be about what Starlette does for FastAPI. So if you have never used FastAPI, this is probably not going to be that useful. So FastAPI is a web framework. I'm going to skip this part, but because I don't have much time. But yeah, it's a very popular web framework that has been rising in popularity on the last 3-4 years. And it's built on top of Starlette, which I am a maintainer. It provides a set of web capabilities on which FastAPI uses to become a web framework. And yeah, so the idea of the talk is to talk a bit about what's from exclusively FastAPI or what was from Starlette and FastAPI is using. So I'm gonna kind of ask if you think it's from Starlette and or FastAPI, and you need to reply. It's not optional. So yeah, let's go. So the first one, it's really uncomfortable to not see. Yeah. Yeah, background tasks. So background tasks, I'm gonna move a bit from, yeah, perfect. So background tasks is a feature that you are able to run a function after the response is sent back to the client. So this is how you do it on FastAPI. And yeah, do you think this is from Starlette or FastAPI? Okay, yeah. So this is from, actually, it's entirely from Starlette. FastAPI just creates a layer on top of it. So if you see here, when you have the background tasks type hint, FastAPI would include that for you, and then you're going to be able to use it on the endpoint function. Okay, so on line 12, we are adding this task that's going to be executed after the response sent back to the client. So these, yes, from Starlette. So this is how the code will look like with pure Starlette. So it's a bit different. It's a bit more verbose. And this is the recommended way to do it on Starlette. So as you see with FastAPI, you have a bit shrunk code. So that's why I guess people liked more FastAPI. But this is how it would look like with pure Starlette. So you just have the definition of the endpoint on line 12 to 16, 17, yeah. And then on line 20 to 22, you define the routes that you're going to use. Yep. So the next feature is the test client. The test client is a feature to make it easier for you to test the endpoints on FastAPI. So is this feature from Starlette or FastAPI? This is entirely from Starlette, actually, 100%. On FastAPI, you just have the reimport. So there is no line of code in FastAPI that does something else on the test client. It's purely on Starlette. And as you see here on line 15 to 12 to 18, where the test is happening, you just have the client calling the endpoint, and then you test the status code and the response JSON, and you'd see that it's exactly the same code on Starlette. Just the definition of the endpoint that's a bit different. Yeah, the next feature is WebSockets. So here from line 6 to 10, we have a simple WebSocket endpoint that's just accepting the connection and sending a text, and then it's closing. It's not very useful, but this is how you do it. I mean, just to demonstrate how to do it. Is this from Starlette or FastAPI? Yeah, this is pretty much on, well, there is something on FastAPI. So as you see here on line 7, you have this WebSocket and then the type hint WebSocket. It means that FastAPI is actually putting into the function the WebSocket object, which we are using from line 8 to 10. And this, yes, it's entirely from Starlette. And on Starlette, it looks pretty much the same. It's because mainly FastAPI focuses on the HTTP strictly request response cycle without carrying money or not using a lot of WebSocket. Even the OpenAPI, which is the schema that FastAPI populates to generate the automatic documentation, we don't have a way to document WebSockets. So we are more focused on the HTTP endpoints. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, so how to document those endpoints? So this is actually what will appear for you if you are using only the application from this code. Sorry, from this code, which is only FastAPI. It doesn't have any HTTP request. So you'll only see this, which is nothing. And the thing is, FastAPI doesn't document the WebSockets, but there is a way to document. And I've actually included this. I should have removed because I didn't have much time. But yeah, so this is a different spec, which is the async API, which is a similar spec for document your endpoints as well. So it does accept HTTP requests, but it also includes, and it's more focused on event-driven systems. So this would be a way if we could populate an async API schema to document the WebSockets. But currently we don't have a way. And there is this, I have a project called FastAPI Async API, which tries to do this, but I haven't completed. And if anyone wants to help complete it, you're welcome. And yeah, so the next thing is, yeah. So I talked about the OpenAPI, but yeah, where, oh, that was the question. Well, that was already the spoiler, but anyway. So is this from Starlette or FastAPI? So I already said it because I put it on the next slide. So this is actually from both of them. So Starlette also generates the OpenAPI, but in a way that no one uses it. Because you don't have it automatically from the type hint system. So if you want to do it in Starlette, you'd need to, this is FastAPI. Yeah, if you want to do it in Starlette, you need to put it on the doc string. I think people did this with Flask in the past, Flask Swagger or something. And then with that, you'd be able to generate the OpenAPI schema that's on the left. On FastAPI, it's a bit easier. You don't need to care about it. You just define your endpoint. You will automatically have the OpenAPI schema. And with that, you are able to generate the Swagger. Yeah, the Swagger. No? Okay, I didn't put the Swagger. But it's the cute documentation that people like when you use FastAPI. Okay, the next feature is middleware. How much time? Oh, okay. So middlewares. Middlewares are kind of functions or things that you can execute that will be in between your endpoint function. So and FastAPI has a capability that you just put this decorator app.middleware that will cover HTTP requests. And then you can define the middleware in an easy way. So on line 13, I'm just calling the call next, which means that I'm going to call the endpoint. And with the response of the endpoint, I'm going to do something. So here I'm just adding a custom header with the value example, and then I'm returning the response to the client. So is this from FastAPI or Starlette? This is from Starlette. No, Starlette. this is from Starlette. I know that it has the decorator, so it looks more FastAPI onic, but it's actually Starlette. Yeah, but this would be like the similar way to do it on Starlette. You do have the app.middleware installed, but it's kind of recommended to use this. Actually, we're recommending a third way to do this kind of thing now, which is creating a pure ASCII middleware, but I'm not going to mention this now. If you want to know what that is, you just need to go to the Starlette documentation on middlewares and you search for ASCII pure middleware, and that's the recommended way to create middlewares in FastAPI. Yeah, and what else? Yeah, this is a feature which is really nice, but I don't see many people using it. The path converter is a way to, well, mainly this is a good example where here. When you want to match a path, like a file path, and you don't, I mean, you need to match it all here. So, and it needs to go to your endpoint. So this is a bit tricky because you need to match every slash that comes after this one will be included in this path. So it'll be passed to the endpoint function. So, and this is called the path converter, but you can have path converted for integers or any other type, and you can create custom ones. Yeah, is this from FastAPI or Starlette? Yes, this is from Starlette. So Starlette, that's why it's not very known. And with FastAPI, you kind of don't need this because you'd have the type annotation that will kind of do it for you. But for path, it's actually mandatory. If you don't do it, FastAPI will not help you here. Okay, so yeah, this would be a way to do it in Starlette. So you get the path parameter here, and it will only match if you have the converter on the right type that you want. What else? Yeah, all that. Sorry, it's just ending. Yeah, so FastAPI is very cool. That's why people use it, and there is a lot of capabilities on top of Starlette, and those are some of them. It's good. It has auto completion. It has data validation, API documentation, and all that stuff. And yeah, I don't have time, but I'm working on Pydantic now. So, and we're gonna release Pydantic v2 tomorrow or today, like the stable release. So if you can, please test it. You don't need the pre in some hours, so you can just install it. And if you can help with Pydantic.dev roadmap, we are creating products, and we're gonna define which one is gonna come first with the feedbacks of the people. So if you work with data or something, that really helps. But Pydantic.dev roadmap. Thank you.
Okay, so while Michał is setting up, do you have any questions to Marcelo about Starlette or anything else? There's a question. Could you go to the microphone here?
Yes. Yes. Yeah, so it was on the last slide. So, what was the last slide? Well, that has easy for you to. So it has automatic documentation. So that's a pretty nice thing. People love it. It works pretty well with the typing system. It was built with that idea. So you have auto completion on your IDE, which you'll not have with pure Starlette. And you have the most important feature, you have data validation. So you can validate the data that's coming in and coming out. So that's actually the feature that I always tell people that, yeah. yeah, you can, but then at some point you will be building FastAPI. Yeah, I mean, you can. It's just that you're gonna need to work through, and then you're gonna realize that I'm building FastAPI. Let me use FastAPI, because you're gonna see that people have struggled with a lot of problems that you're gonna be trying to solve on your own framework. I mean, there are alternatives for FastAPI as well, which are doing what you are proposing. Yeah. Rob. No. Oh.
Wszystko odpięte? Wszystko działa? Okay, so I have a question. How many people do we have in the audience that do not speak Polish or do not understand Polish? Okay, not many. Hopefully you'll be able to follow the slides, because the next talk is going to be in Polish, and then after that we're going to switch back to English. So we're continuing on the web topics, and we're switching from FastAPI to Django. And I'm going to switch to Polish as well. Więc następny talk będzie o constraintach w Django.
Tak.
Michał.
Dobra, działa? So I tried and made a presentation in English, so maybe that will help. Więc, mógłbyś? Nie, bo wiesz co, nie pokazuję. Okej. Dobra, cześć, więc nazywam się Michał, jestem deweloperem Django w Solvebot i mam właśnie tą prezentację o walidacji danych. Niestety nie upchałem tam constraintów, więc została sama walidacja. Zdarza się. Dobra, więc chciałbym wam, wiecie co, powiedzieć, jak tworzymy customowe takie walidacje danych w samym Django, podać wam trochę przykładów, no i mam trochę trików takich, które może wam pomóc w waszych własnych projektach. Więc zaczynając, chciałbym zacząć od samych obiektów, o których będziemy mówimy. To są takie formularze. One określają, jakie dane będą przyjmowane przez prawda, naszą aplikację, jaka będzie ich struktura oraz jakie będą dostępne typy tych plików. Więc definiujemy sobie pola widzicie, patrzcie, sorry. Definiujemy sobie pola w nich poprzez dodawanie obiektów pól do samych formularzy. Mamy też dodatkowo dostępne formularze modeli. Modele to są te obiekty przedstawiające nasze jakieś dane w tabeli, które potem używamy sobie, możemy edytować, dodawać różne do nich. Formularze dla nich działają w ten sam sposób jak normalne formularze, tylko dodatkowo jeszcze biorą i generują na podstawie informacji zawartych w tym modelu te właśnie formularze, te właśnie pola i dane do nich. Więc nie można też mówić o Django bez samego DRF-a, czyli REST Frameworka, który służy nam do generowania właśnie API, czyli konkurenta do FastAPI. I w wielu przypadkach on działa bardzo analogicznie do samego Django. Będę się koncentrował na Django, ale też będę starał się wam przedstawić te różnice, jakie wynikają między nim a samym właśnie DRF-em. I teraz DRF używa serializerów. Zamiast formularzy, ich logika działania jest bardzo do siebie zbliżona, tak samo definiuje się w obu polach, które serializery jeszcze pozwalają na zadnieżanie siebie nawzajem w sobie, co bardziej odpowiada tą strukturą danych, gdzie dostajemy z frontendu często. Dostajemy jakieś obiekty gotowe, no to odpowiada do siebie. I teraz zaczynając z przykładami. Powiedzmy sobie, że mamy dwa przykłady. Mamy jakiś tam model z artykułami, mamy model z autorami. Autorzy mają jakiś wiek, a artykuły mają relacje do naszych autorów. No i dostajemy pierwsze, wiecie, zadanie. Mamy zrobić jakiś formularz, który będzie zawierał artykuły z przekleństwami. I jak to artykuły właśnie z przekleństwami, trochę głupio, żeby osoby młodociane je tworzyły. Więc naszym zadaniem jest dodanie walidacji, żeby to na pewno był ten wiek 13 lat przynajmniej. Więc nasze formularze dają nam taki dostępnego hooka. Na każde pole, które dostarczamy, one generują sobie dodatkową walidację do takiego dodatkowego hooka do tego pola, który nam bierze i pozwala to zwalidować i sprawdzić i wtedy możemy sobie właśnie przez to przejść. I tak jak właśnie widzicie, potem podpinamy to do widoku i to tam śmiga. I teraz tak, idąc dalej, dostajemy kolejnego taska i mamy kolejne wymagania, mówią o artykule o polityce. Znów powtarza się tematyka tego, że młodociani nie za bardzo, więc tworzymy taki dodatkowy formularz. I teraz pojawia się sytuacja, w której mamy duplikację kodu. Mamy tu i tu mamy ten sam występującą logikę, co nie jest do końca idealnym rozwiązaniem. I wchodzi nam na to, wchodzą na to walidatory. Walidatory to są w Django takie klasy albo funkcje, które są wywoływalne. Ich definicja, ich zasada działania jest taka, że przyjmują wartość, jeśli coś jest nie tak, wyrzucają validation error. Praktycznie tylko tyle. Klasy mają tą przewagę, że pozwalają nam jeszcze na dodanie dodatkowych informacji, prawda, gdybyście chcieli bardziej spersonalizować je w danych przypadkach, które wykorzystujecie. Dobra. Więc możemy sobie je wykorzystać i tutaj właśnie, wiecie, wcześniej stworzyłem ten validator na wiek od 13 lat i teraz możemy go sobie dodać i po prostu dodajemy sobie je, nadpisując dane pora w tym całym formularzu i dodając do niego validator. I to nam zastępuje całą logikę, teraz mamy wszystko w jednym miejscu. Dobra. To idąc dalej, teraz może to nie jest idealne rozwiązanie, więc zdecydujemy sobie, że dodajemy sobie jakiś tam rating do samego modelu artykułów, żeby oznaczać. Jakaś osobna logika będzie nam definiowała, które artykuły są od 13 lat, które nie. My tylko przyjmujemy, że mamy takie pole, to będzie nam w jakiś sposób dostarczane. I teraz, jeśli chcemy, teraz zastępujemy sobie te całe poprzednie formularze jednym formularzem dla całego artykułu i wykorzystujemy hooka clean. To jest hook, który bierze i określa nadziałem pomiędzy polami, po to, żeby właśnie, bo mamy zawarte informacje w dwóch różnych polach, więc musimy pobrać sobie wartość z autora, wartość z tego właśnie ratingu i porównać i wyrzucić wtedy validation jakiś tam error. Więc tak to wygląda. Przechodząc dalej, oczywiście jeśli chodzi o samego DRF-a, to sytuacja jest niemalże identyczna. Różnica jest taka, że clean zastępujemy słowem validate. Większość działa dokładnie tak samo. Walidatory, które stworzyliśmy poprzednio, możemy wykorzystać sobie w serializerze. Spoko. Jedyny problem jest taki, że z powodu struktury samego kodu błędy wyrzucane przez serializery i przez DRF-a są inne niż błędy samego Django. Więc jeżeli nie chcemy otrzymywać 500 w przypadku niezgadzania się danych, musimy sobie je przetłumaczyć na te błędy z DRF-a, otrzymać 400. W dodatku DRF pozwala nam, mamy takiego hooka na walidowanie paru pól jednocześnie, ale do niego za chwilę przejdę. I teraz tak, i patrzcie, ten sam formularz do artykułu, teraz w postaci serializera, widzicie, prawda, wygląda tak samo, różnica jest jedynie w nazwie samej metody. Dobra. To posuwając się do przodu, teraz dostajemy, prawda, na dodanie dodatkowego modelu. Model ma znów tą samą zasadę, że pojawia się znów też pojawia się ten rating, jest taka sama relacja i tu jest jeden z pierwszych tytułów, który chciałem wam pokazać. Bo oczywiście jak dodamy sobie ten serializer do tych książek, które dostaliśmy, to też mogą być z przekleństwami i tak dalej, zauważycie, że pojawia nam się znów duplikacja kodu. Teraz mamy validate, mamy artykuły i mamy książki, mają ten sam kod, ta sama rodzina jest w obu miejscach. Bo sprawdzamy ciągle te same pola i tych samych autorów. I teraz nie mam na to idealnej nazwy, ponieważ, no nie wiem, nie ma do końca jej. Serializery w DRF-ie pozwalają nam na umieszczenie ich w atrybucie w tej klasie meta, która pozwala na, wiecie, podpięcie do całego serializera jakiegoś jednego walidatora, który będzie wykonywany na całym zbiorze danych. Tutaj wziąłem i napisałem taki przykład tego, taki ARA interface. To nie jest tak, one zostały zbudowane, ale to jest to, co potrzebujecie praktycznie, żeby ich z nich wykorzystywać. Ich oryginalnym zamysłem było wspieranie takich, wiecie, sytuacji, w której mamy parę danych, które muszą być unikalne jednocześnie razem ze sobą. Więc, ale rzadko, nie wiem, jak wiecie, nie spotkałem z taką potrzebą ani razu jeszcze, więc mała strata. Więc bierzemy i nadpisujemy sobie, tworzymy sobie taki walidator, który działa nam na całym serializerze. On w odróżnieniu od poprzednich walidatorów przyjmuje po prostu cały słownik z wszystkimi wartościami, które on dostarczał. No i jeszcze ma opcję dodawania tam kontekstu, ale z niej nie skorzystamy sobie. I teraz przez to możemy sobie wziąć i uprościć nasze serializery, książki i artykułu, po prostu zamykając tą całą logikę w jednym osobnym walidatorze. I teraz, idąc dalej, jeżeli chcemy, bo czasami są sytuacje, kiedy mamy formularz, który też musimy jeden model zarówno obsługiwać przez API, jak i przez formularze w naszej aplikacji. No i teraz formularze nie mają takiej obsługi, nie mają hooka, który by nam pozwolił na walidowanie paru pól jednocześnie. Ale takim z małą inżynierią, z małym midstreamem jesteśmy w stanie sobie po prostu takiego hooka dopisać. Tutaj jedyna uwaga, że niestety musimy wziąć i przetłumaczyć sobie jakiś tam validation error z serializerów na formsy, żeby nam dobrze obsługa błędów funkcjonowała. I dodając takiego midstreama, możemy sobie po prostu dodać do formularzy i obsłużyć tak samo jak serializery. Więc pozbywamy się tej całej duplikacji kodu i tak dalej. I tyle będzie z prezentacji.
Czy mamy może jakieś pytania do Michała? Na temat Django, constraintów albo walidacji? Nie mam żadnych pytań. Dobrze, to w takim razie dzięki, Michał. I let's switch back to English. And we will slowly come to the last talk of the day, and Piotr is setting up. It will also be about web-related stuff, and it's going to be a case of weird redirects and 404s. A mysterious talk. In the meantime, I'd like to actually mention one more thing that I forgot to mention before, which is that during the opening, I mentioned that there's a competition running on Discord. So if you are not on Discord yet, if you go to discord.pykonik.org, you will be able to join there. It's very easy to win because we only have 2 entries so far and there are 2 prizes. So even if you join now, you still might be able to win. So I would encourage you to take part in the competition, and the prize is the license for the JetBrains product. So you can win a license for PyCharm or IntelliJ or CLion or any other JetBrains products. Okay. Is it working? Okay, so a round of applause for Piotrek.
Yeah. Hello. So I didn't have any time to prepare my slides today. So this is my main slide, title slide. Sorry for everyone that experienced some troubles on the stream that were not fixed very quickly because I was working on my presentation while streaming. Sorry for that. That's my fault. So a friend of mine tried to log in to internet in a train. You know those hotspots in some trains, you have to connect to the internet that is widely open, yeah, perfect for the security. But then you have a captive portal that usually asks you to accept some terms and conditions, etc. Usual stuff. Sometimes you have to provide your phone number. That's shitty, but I think that's not happening anymore in Polish trains, so that's a plus, but for sure it was happening before. So he discovered that it was logging in him out very frequently, so he tried to automate the process. He captured the request that was going on under the hood. That was a request from some of the system utility that tries to detect captive portal, and like it redirected him through some shitty JavaScript to another request. Sure, let's automate from that spot. So he tried to copy that URL, that exact URL that you can see right there. Sorry, it is a bit obfuscated to anonymize him, but the important stuff is visible. So he tried to anonymize it, and he pasted into the Python console. as usual, because yeah, we are on Pykonik, right? And he ran requests. He did execute that query, and he got 404. Okay, so he started digging. He checked every single header. He checked everything that he could have possibly checked, and he couldn't figure it out before his journey on the train came to the end. And yeah, so. But there's something for sure different. He thought that because it was probably under some HTTPS, that there was some kind of maybe TLS fingerprinting or something like that, but not sure. But after he got back to home, he compared those requests and he found a difference. And let's play a quick game. Can you spot it? On the top, you have the correct request, on the bottom, the wrong one. Can you spot the difference, maybe? Yes? No, it's a response. Some people discovered that. Let's try the demo, because I recreated using FastAPI. Hey, so I recreated the whole condition via some FastAPI simple server. The broken one is one that's it's supposedly recreating what the Pendolino servers hotspot were doing under the hood. And we have a simple requests, and this is exactly the same URL that was pasted, that he pasted just from his browser into his console. And indeed, it returns 404. And if we check it, I introduced because there was some kind of like hash at the end that probably that MD, that probably was the signature of the whole request, and that probably was why it was failing. So I recreated pretty much that. So I have here a field of signatures, some stuff in the URL, and the correct signature is returned for the convenience in 404. So we can clearly see that the signature is different. Why so? Like, you can see how I'm doing the signature, ignored like the whole part after that from the parameters. Only the the body of the it is important. Like, I'm parsing, just taking the full URL, splitting it by the signature field, so I have a URL and the signature, and I'm trying to compare it later on, and it is failing. As some of you suggested before, it was because of those characters. Like, there are right here. There are in the wrong request, whole encoding is uppercase, and in the right request, it's lowercase. But I here have lowercase, and it was computed from the same thing. So let's check what actually happens under the hood. So I will use some functions that, of course, I will use some models that request is using under the hood. So I created like the request of the request. Great wording. So let's see. It executes before under the hood the prepare, and let's see what's the URL after that prepare was executed. And indeed, it is uppercase. So requests is messing something up here. As you can see, browser doesn't do that. I have the same request right now, and when I execute, I get like, this is the response for 200 that I encoded, also for debugging and etc. But that's pretty much the 200, so it works. And why is it so? So let's check. Let's dig some into the request function. So requests, the class I was getting was that request. Maybe I will zoom it in. Request, and I executed on the prepare method on it. It creates prepared requests, of course, and calls on it prepare. So let's scroll down to the prepared request. Here we have prepare, and we have all functions that do something, and we're probably interested in prepare URL. Let's scroll down, prepare URL. It's doing something, yada yada, and there is some parse URL. Okay, so let's dig further, but that parse URL doesn't come from requests. It actually comes from URL free. Okay, so the bug is here. Let's dig. Parse URL. This is the code of the parse URL. Yada yada yada. The line we are looking for is highlighted. It's some encode invalid chars that gets the query chars. Let's see that magic encode invalid chars function. It's right there. So it takes that part of the URL, some allowed chars that is just a list of strings, probably characters, and indeed it does something on the URL, and here's %re sub n. What? Wait, what? So it is getting already normalized, so already URL encoded things, and decodes it back, and then it codes it back with somewhere right around here, encodes it back into the into what it's given. So it parses those. It can for sure parse it because like uppercase, lowercase doesn't really matter. But when it is encoding in again, then it always use lowercase. So it is swapping the lowercase to the uppercase in the encoding. Yeah, that's probably shouldn't be there. So let's see how we can fix it quickly. Maybe let's try another library that I don't have installed for some reason. So let's install it quickly. And oops. I guess we won't use another library, but the same bug occurs in HTTPX from my discovery and in AHO HTTP. So those are two right now competing asynchronous libraries. One is actually used in the Starlette. Fun fact, like the test case that was presented today, it's actually based on the HTTPX client. So Starlette may have the same bug under the hood. But actually Starlette, that's actually Starlette. I was confirming that it actually uses HTTPX, but the HTTPX doesn't use URL free. So probably the issue was copied over or reproduced somewhere else also, because from as far as I'm aware, for parsing, for like doing the same parsing thing, HTTPX uses some batteries included into Python. So maybe the bug was copied over from URL free to Python or other way around, but there's a bug and we should probably fix it sooner than later. Thank you, that's all from me. Any questions?
No, it's just a comment. So in the beginning of HTTPX, the current maintainer of URL lib3 actually helped a lot. So maybe there's a connection there.
Okay, so maybe actually the code was copied over from to the HTTPX from your lib3. Yeah, that also may be a case. Any other questions or comments? Okay, so
I have a question. Do you think it will be fixed?
I I will try to fix it. I don't know if my patch will be accepted, but I will try to dig I digged through the URL free, the issue is right here. I have to figure out how to reproduce the same code, but without that bug. That may be challenging, but for other things, I will have to dig. But if anyone wants to help, feel free, open pull requests, report those issues, dig through the code, open source code is made by all of us, so let's do it. Anything else?
Open an issue first.
Yes.
Open an issue first.
Yeah, there should be an issue, I think, in requests already, but it's already marked as invalid because it's not from URL free, and I think I've opened already, or I have somewhere opened like a form and filled in halfway and not submitted for opening that issue. But for other things, yeah, for sure, open an issue first. Anything else?
Okay, I don't see any more questions, so a round of applause for Piotr first.
Thank you.
Yes.
Ready. Okay, so we have 5 minutes. A round of applause for Dominic, please.
Yeah, so welcome again. I hope you can see my console now. Yeah, so coming back to the example we had before. So we have this varlog syslog, and what I forgot to show you is that if we actually remove this file, right, it's still there on disk, right? But how do we access it? Like, I removed it, so, you know, clearly this path is not really accessible to me. I cannot read it. The thing is that I showed you that there is this like lsoff np, and I can do grep deleted, grep syslog, and maybe grep log. Well, maybe var, not log. And I can see that here's this process rsyslogd that has this file still opened. I mean, the file is marked as deleted, but it's still opened by it, and so that's why it still takes disk space. The thing is that if I look for the rsyslogd process and take its process ID, I can then go to the proc file system, go to the directory of this process, go to the fd, which stands for file descriptors. This is a directory. And now we can see all the files or file descriptors that this process has opened. And here is this file descriptor number 8, which points to this varlog syslog file, which says it's deleted. And obviously, if I try to cut this path, I cannot do that because this path does not exist in my system. But the thing is that I can use this file descriptor file, which is like, it's like a virtual symbolic link or something like that. And I can, for example, cut or tail it, and I can see the content of this file. And this is how I can bring back this file to life. So, I can resurrect the file kind of. And, I could copy it back to the same path, which should not be something I should do because, I would recreate the file and the process would still have the old file opened. So this is not the correct way to do it, obviously. But that's one way to bring back the file. The other way to bring back the file is that there's this utility called testdisk on Linux, and maybe I'll go to TMP because testdisk may create some file. Please enlarge the terminal. The terminal is too small for running this utility. Sorry. Yeah. And if you go to this, so this utility allows you to inspect a disk that you have. And if we go to dev SDA, which is the disk where this varlog was in, and we go deeper somewhere here, you need to click something like find some partitions, stuff like that. at the bottom you have some kind of legend about what kind of like characters you can click here. P for listing files, and then I could go to var log. And I can find syslog here, and here's this file which has some kind of size. So I think it's like 200 megabytes here, and I can click capital C, as it says at the bottom here, to copy the selected files. So if I click it, I can then copy this file because it's still there on disk. I mean, I removed it, but removing file is just like unlinking a kind of link or inode under the hood. So I can save this file. It was copied, and I should be able to see this file if I close this tool here. Maybe I did something wrong. I think it's saved in a different name, but I'm not sure if I will be able to find it now. But yeah, if I didn't have any files here, I would probably find it. Maybe it's in the var? No. What? But I should go to the first one. I can't find it, but you can bring it back this way anyway. Okay, so that was one thing I wanted to show you. The other thing I wanted to show you is that we have this cool technology on the web which allows you to, for example, play Tomb Raider 1, and I can start Tomb Raider 1. It's being loaded in my web browser. I can play it, blah blah blah. I mean, this is not Tomb Raider 1. It's OpenLara, which is an open source fork or something, or maybe a copy. I don't know. It's somewhere there on GitHub. I won't show you the project. But how is this actually done? Because this is a project that's written in like assembly and C and C++, as at least that's what GitHub says. And the way it's done is that this C or C++ code, it's compiled into WebAssembly, which is like a virtual machine that is running inside the web browser, and it can execute some code. So WebAssembly is this super cool new technology, which says it's designed to be safe, portable, fast, probably better than JavaScript maybe. And people do lots of weird stuff with it. So for example, launch OpenLara, or maybe even port AutoCAD into web browsers, because that's what AutoCAD did, for example. Yeah, and it also says that there are some security considerations, because the thing is that there must be some virtual machine to run the code, right? Because like you have C code, you compile it to some kind of opcodes, and then there's some virtual machine that runs it. And the thing is that WebAssembly provides no ambient access to the computing environment in which code is executed. So like you cannot open a file in theory. In practice, if you want to open a file, it's like the JavaScript around that needs to support this opening of file in order to do that. And I am playing those kind of security competitions called Capture the Flag. We have been playing Google CTF, which is a competition from Google. We scored 25th place last weekend. That was a pretty tough competition, actually. And there was this challenge called What the WASM, like, about WebAssembly, basically. And WebAssembly in Chrome or Chromium is implemented as a program called V8. Or a project called V8. V8 is actually, there's a whole website for V8, but V8 is actually like a JavaScript engine for the Chromium browser. And this JavaScript engine, apart from executing JavaScript, it can also execute WebAssembly. And here's a small example. We have some kind of C code that looks like this. So we have a simple function that takes an integer called x. It will return x plus 1337. And it uses this mscript10 API, which is a special API and a special compiler also to like compile C code to WebAssembly. So if I go up here and do emcc main.c, this produces actually two files. First of all, a JavaScript file that can be used to, I believe, run this. And there's loads of code, and this .wasm file. This .wasm file, if I try to open it in Vim, it looks like crap. If I try to look over its bytes, it's also not very useful. But the thing is that you can decompile it with a tool called wasm2wat. Nice name. If you do so, and if you maybe say it to like x.wat, and open it, you will see the definition for this WebAssembly module. What we see here is called WebAssembly text format. So this like WebAssembly code, it has a text format which you can write in, and then you can compile this to WASM files as well. So here's a definition of module. You define some types in those modules. You define some functions. Like here's a function that just calls another function, and that's the only instruction it does. We had this 1337 constant there, and we can see it here. So that's likely this function that we had there. But there are also some other functions defined there by the engine, by the EMCC that we used to compile this. And those functions are probably to support all this execution that needs to happen under the hood. And at the end, you can see that there's some definition for memory, for globals, and some exports. So like the pawn function that we declared is exported so that JavaScript can execute it. Then you can, for example, write a code like this. So for example, you can write JavaScript code where you create a WebAssembly module. You read some file to load this module. Normally that would be fetched from some server. Then you create a WebAssembly module instance, and then you can, for example, call this exports.pawn function. And that's when the execution of the WASM code happens. So so there is V8, which is a WebAssembly and JavaScript engine. And apart from opcodes for this WebAssembly, this V8 is actually having some kind of JIT compiler over this WebAssembly. And this JIT compiler is pretty trivial. I mean, it's called lift-off compiler. And what it does is it goes over functions of the WebAssembly and it generates code. And this code is just machine code. So if you compile V8, you would get a binary called D8 because why not? I mean, that's how they named it. And then you have some cool flags for, trying different things with this. And if I didn't do anything wrong, we should be able, maybe I should be in this directory and do it like this. Sorry for the trouble. But if I compile the WebAssembly code that does something simple, we can see like the generated code for it with also some comments. And this is like native assembly here. That's it. Thank you.
Okay, so I was about to say that we have one more lightning talk from the Krakow Linux user group team. That's the people here dealing with our streaming and recording and doing a really great job with that. A round of applause for... But it's not only recording and streaming, so we will learn a few more things what they're doing. In the meantime, since nothing is happening on the screen, I've heard we have one more idea for lightning talk. Marcelo, are you doing a lightning talk? Okay. And I think that would be it for today because we don't have that much time left. So,
okay.
Last lightning talks.
Promise few minutes only. A few things about CLUG. We are Krakow Linux users group, and we are community focused around Linux, but not on Linux, but around technology. We are living mostly in Krakow, so we are just simple community without membership. Right now we have website, Discord channel, and we meet from time to time to drink a beer and talk about tech stuff, whatever we want. So this is our website. We do some nice projects, and most important, maybe not most important, but most of the focused one right now is streaming. So if you have something to show or just want to stream online, just talk with us and we can arrange this one. Dominic do it frequently on AGH University. Right now we are here, so no problems with that. We have equipment and we can support this one. We have also a nice project that is around network support from one of the students' dormitories, and actually this is one thing that we earn money for the foundation. You don't see this one. I'm talking from scratch, from my head, and we also organize some nice event called Noc Informatyka. I will show you short video about this one, and few other things like trainings. One of our memberships, our founder Vladimir make a project called Academia Kubernetesa, and big thing that we are doing pretty frequently is to organize some events and trips to venues like Brussels or Chaos Communication Congress in Germany. So we support people to gain around, to gather for the common transportation or to grab tickets for it. So so that's all what I have to tell you. Join us if you want. We don't have membership. We don't have some fees that you need to rise to be in the community. Just simply join Discord channel, and if we have some fine projects, probably there will be announced there. Few words about Noc Informatyka. This is the video that describes this event. We are looking for people that want support us with that because this is an event that we do it for 15 years, and actually we are a little bit tired, and we looking for a new blood to support us with this one. So if you have a power or even experience to do some events, just write to us, and we will happy to work to make it again. Thanks. That's all. Okay.
I think it's a bit quiet. There was some sound in the background that died at 9 p.m. Marcelo, are you setting up? Okay. What are you going to talk about?
Code mod. How to create a code mod.
Okay.
Transformer.
In the meantime, how many people are going to the after party after this final lightning talk? Okay. So you know the drill. You need to find Łukasz. Łukasz will lead you to the destination. Is it? Yep.
Is it connected? Can I?
Do you have the
settings? No, but I want to see it. Display.
You can set it as a mirror.
Clone. Please set up clone.
Come now. This one?
Mirroring.
Yep.
I cannot see it. Can you see it? Okay. That's huge. Can you see it? Great, thank you. So 5 minutes? Okay. So I actually didn't plan this, but I want to have a talk in the future about it. So I am developing a tool that will make it easier for people to migrate from Pydantic v1 to Pydantic v2. It will pretty much, it's a code mod, transformer or formatter, whatever you want to call it. So it reads the code and then it creates, in this case, CST, a concrete syntax tree, and then I modify it to create the code that will comply with Pydantic v2 in this case. So the tool is called Bump Pydantic, and I'm just going to talk a bit about how I created it. So there are a set of rules here, and there's the installation, the usage, blah, blah, blah. But there is a set of rules which is written here. So each one of those rules, it's kind of a separate and piece of this whole tool. So this one would be, and each one is called a code mod as well. So this code mod here will transform every optional type into, it will add the default none to those fields. Yeah, so I'm gonna explain how I actually work to create a tool like this. So I create a cute README. No, it's kidding. I create first the test suite. So this is actually a test suite of one of the code mods that I'm still going to be I'm still going to create. It's not implemented. So you create a set of test cases that you think, I mean, it should comply. So and tests as well that you think it shouldn't modify the code. So the trick thing about creating a code mod or a transformer or this thing is that you want to have a lot of test cases that you actually don't want to transform the code. So for example, here I have one test that you have the before and after. The before here is that I have this validator on line 24, and I want to transform it to a field validator. And I'm also changing only if it has the this argument here. So this is one of the tests. The other test that, so this is not good. The other test that I want to show you is this one, for example, which is a noob, so nothing's gonna happen. The code's gonna be read, and it should be, it should pass. So as you see, I don't have anything that marks this test as X-fail, and if you see the other tests, you have X-fail on every one of them. So how many minutes do I have? 3? Okay, so should talk slowly then. So so this is one of the things. Yeah, true. So this is one of the things that I'm going to create yet, probably tomorrow. That are, yeah. So this, I don't have the implementation yet, but I'm gonna use implementation of a different code mod that I've created last week or 2 weeks ago. 6 days, yeah, last week. So this one, it's called a field code mod. Field code mod, yeah, field code mod. So the field code mod, it's gonna be removing, actually renaming those keys. So every field in Pydantic is gonna be, there are a set of keywords that are deprecated or removed, or the names are changed, and those just change the name. So I'm gonna go through each one of those keys and I'm gonna replace the new ones. And for that, the first thing that I'm gonna do is I'm gonna check if field is imported. So this whole thing that you're seeing here is just to make sure that in the module I have something, I have the body that matches 0 or more imports, and it has Pydantic field on it. So if I have this statement from Pydantic import field, where field doesn't matter the order, so I have this 0 or more because it doesn't matter if there is something between field and in the import statement. So I kind of need those kind of things, because if, for example, if I don't have this 0 or more in front of it, it means that the field is the first import name on the import statement. So this will only match from Pydantic import field, and then I have the rest of the import statement. So I need this kind of thing to make sure that I am actually doing the right thing. From that, I'm gonna check if I actually have this imported. So I'm gonna visit and make sure that I have this Pydantic field imported. And if I have this, I'm gonna have a conditional inside the field that I am sure that I'm in the right piece of node that I want to change. If I am, then I'm gonna go through each argument of that field. So this will go through each parameter. So in this case, if you have something like description or mean items and a parameter that doesn't have a keyword, I'm gonna iterate through each one of those. This is what's happening here. And if it's a keyword that it's a name, meaning that if we have a keyword, so in this case, I have an argument that actually don't have a keyword, so I only have 2 that has a keyword, description and mean items. I'm gonna iterate, and then if I find one of the keys that I've said in the beginning, one of those, I'm actually gonna to change it and I'm going to generate, well, I'm actually generating a new set of arguments. So if I match those rules here, I'm going to create those arguments, and at the end, I'm just going to replace all the arguments from this node. So if I run the code below, so this is the code. If I run it, Python, bump identic, code mods, field, we should be able to see this, and then, what am I printing here? And then the CST, the syntax tree, and then we're going to be able to see the new code. The expected new code is to be able to transform these min items in min length, I guess. I don't remember the beginning. Min length, yes, exactly. So if I run this, so as you see at the beginning, well, as you see, the CST is huge, even with the code being that small. But the beginning, you see this. Actually, I'm going to comment that part of the code. So if I comment this, and I run this again. So I see the beginning that I have min items, and I see this one with min length. So that's just how we build a code mod in Python.
Wrap it up quickly. If you have any questions to Marcelo, are you joining us for the after party today? Okay. Perfect. So if you have any questions about modifying code, then join us at the after party. How do I connect this? Okay. Okay. So I wasn't actually planning to talk about this, but I was talking about the finding inspiration in other talks today, and Dominic said a lot of stuff about WebAssembly. So I wanted to bring attention to one other thing, which is PyScript, which is Python running in the browser. These days you can make Python run in the browser because, well, somebody already made it work. And actually, since this is also a PyData meetup, you can Google Jupyter Lite and use it. And this is a Jupyter Lab that's running fully in the browser. This doesn't have a server. It's just running in this browser. We can import, can import pandas as PD and then run it, and it will run in the browser, and then everything runs on this computer without any server. So I encourage you to check that out. And if you're interested more about PyScript and WebAssembly, there's a conference in Prague. And as you can see in events, there is a WASM summit here. And if you go to the schedule here on, I believe, day 2, on Thursday, there's entire block here of talks related to PyScript, running Python in the browser, how the WebAssembly works, and then also packaging Python apps with Briefcase, which is also somehow related to the topic. Okay, anyway, that's all for today. Everything good has come to an end. Thank you all for coming, and thank to CLUG for the streaming and for the recordings. Thanks to Cosmo for helping us set up with the space at Politechnica. Thanks to all the speakers, all the awesome talks today, and thank you all for coming. And if you join us on Discord, you will know when the next meetup is going to happen. The competition on Discord is still running. We will close it later today. So yeah, that's it for today. Thank you, and now we'll go for the after party.